proceed. So welcome to our Mothers Out Front Massachusetts Climate Action Call. My name is Diane Sokol. I'm a member of the Brookline chapter and part of the statewide Clean Heat, Clean Air campaign. For those who are not familiar with the Mothers Out Front Climate Action Calls, in the next 45 minutes, you will learn about a specific climate issue and we will take focused action together. Many of you may have joined our climate action call last August and were outraged to learn about Massport's proposed private jet expansion at Hanscom Airfield. Today, we will focus on the current environmental review process for this massive project and how we can use our collective strength and our voices to support those trying to stop this expansion. Before we get going, I'll quickly go over a few norms for this meeting. Please rename yourself in Zoom to include your name, your city or town, and if you like, an organization you're with. Be sure to mute yourself when we are together in the main room if you are not already muted. You can use the chat to share comments or questions during the call. Closed captioning is available and you should be able to access that tool on your screen. And finally, we are recording this climate action call. If you do not want to be seen in the recording, please use the Zoom controls to turn off your video. Here's a quick preview of the agenda for our climate action call today. So after a brief overview of today's focus, we will hear a personal story from our member Dorothy Anderson-Perales. Next, we will divide into breakout rooms for a few minutes so we can connect with each other. We will rejoin the main room to hear the background information about our topic today. Then we'll move on to our action. We've set aside about 15 minutes of this call to take action together online. We will come back together for a few important announcements and next steps. And we will end this meeting promptly at 12:45. We do hope you'll stay until the end. Many of you are familiar with the Hanscom private jet expansion project, which can take years of legal and regulatory processes. Today's focus is a pivotal piece of the process, the Draft Environmental Impact Report, or DEIR, which is part of the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act, also known as MEPA. This is happening right now. It requires public comment, which is time sensitive, and this will be our action today. But before we dive into the details of this expansion, we want to share a personal story. We will now hear from Mothers Out Front member Dorothy Anderson-Perales, and then we will have an opportunity to share our own experiences with each other. Dorothy has leaned into climate justice activism as her teenage daughters have become more independent. She participated with Mothers Out Front at the Climate March in New York City and also events at the State House. She is an active member of the Environmental Justice Committee at First Parish in Bedford. One of her unique contributions to climate justice is her modern dance choreography and performances on themes such as the beauty of the natural world and prayers to the earth. Here is Dorothy's story.
Hi. As you can see from those photos, I love to spend time in nature with my dog. In fact, I consider it essential to my well-being. Every morning, I give myself a quiet moment surrounded by trees where I close my eyes and I notice what I feel and what I hear. Wind in the branches, a couple of birds, the sound of my own breathing. And what is that? Oh, it's the sound of a jet directly overhead. When I walk on a trail bordering Hanscom Field, I hear a jet fly overhead and I see it every few minutes. Low enough that I feel I could wave to the few passengers on board and point out the breed of my dog, Australian Shepherd, by the way. I know there are a lot of demands on our time, and it can be overwhelming, but in a democracy, our power comes from each of us taking to heart the responsibility we have to use our own voice to speak up for what we think is just and what aligns with our values. Some people have said, do you think your activism is really going to make a difference? Climate change is already happening. I say, I don't worry about whether or not it's going to make a difference. I notice how I feel. When I lean into something, participating on an issue I care deeply about, I don't want to look back and regret that I didn't use my voice. So when is the vote on this expansion, I've heard? There is no vote. This expansion will go forward unless we stop it. Tell other people you know. We are more powerful together. Let's stop this expansion.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. That was great to hear your personal connection to our topic today. I'm just getting the slides back up here. We will be dividing up shortly into small breakout groups of 2 or 3 participants, and we would like you to share what motivated you to be here today to take action against the private jet expansion. Do you have a specific personal connection to the proposed project? Deb, can you put that question in the chat for everyone to read? So introduce yourself briefly, what city or town you are from, and your thoughts on today's topic. Make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak. When you see the 15-second countdown, use that time to wrap up your conversations. You will automatically rejoin the main room for the rest of our climate action call. Enjoy your time together.
Welcome back. My name is Molly Haskell from the Bedford chapter of Mothers Out Front. I hope you found the breakout engaging and inspiring. I know I did. We're going to take a minute to orient folks and recap the basics of the private jet expansion project and highlight why it is so objectionable. Hanscom is in Bedford, about 15 miles west of Boston. Off to the left of the map is where Dorothy takes her dog, Great Meadow National Wildlife Refuge. Massport runs Hanscom, whose operations are second in New England only to Logan. There can be confusion around this facility, so we need to make some distinctions. Hanscom Civil Airfield abuts Hanscom Air Force Base, but they are separate and distinct. There are worthy private aviation uses, such as medical flights, and there are occasional military flights. These are not our focus. Our goal is to stop private jet expansion at Hanscom or anywhere else. So now we'll take a look at where this project lies on the Massachusetts roadmap for climate policy. And really the short answer is that this project goes in the opposite direction from the Massachusetts climate roadmap. It requires all sectors to reduce emissions except aviation's emissions, which are controlled at the federal level. The expansion will more than double private jet capacity at Hanscom. Emissions are reasonably projected to double by 2040. The developers conveniently get around this sticky bit by excluding aircraft emissions. Private jet expansion at Hanscom represents the largest known project for generating new greenhouse gases in Massachusetts, for the pleasure of a handful of the ultra wealthy, paid for by all of us. All of this is diametrically opposite our climate goals and equity goals. So private luxury jets are inherently unequal. Emissions from one typical domestic private jet flight equals the annual emissions from 4 average fossil cars. Emissions from one round trip to Asia equals lifetime emissions of one typical rural Indian household. Just over half of all private jet trips are to resort destinations. Nationally, hangar space is the limiting factor for private jet use. There are waiting lists for parking and hangar spaces at most airfields, including Hanscom. So the idea is like if you build a parking deck in Back Bay, you would expect it to fill up immediately. Private jet owners don't pay taxes on jet sales, excise, parts, or service, unlike the rest of us who own cars. Fees we all pay to fly commercially subsidize runways, towers, and hangars for private jets. So we can talk about some of the consequences from this inequitable use of fossil fuels. Hanscom jet emissions today cancel out nearly 50% of the greenhouse gains from all solar panels installed in Massachusetts to date. To offset the carbon dioxide equivalent of the expected jet traffic at Hanscom Field would require a lot of heroics, such as removing 250,000 fossil fuel cars from the road. Unfortunately, our actions will only go towards canceling a tiny amount of the greenhouse gas emissions of the private luxury jet traffic operating at Hanscom. As we all know, Massport is powerful and independent. They have a mandate to serve the aviation industry, and it can seem like they are nearly untouchable. Governor Healy does have some clout. She cannot approve or deny a project, but she can push back on the environmental reporting process as many times as necessary, with the idea that with enough delay, the developer will abandon the project. She can have an impact on how much money Massport gets to run their operations. Over time, she has appointment power over Massport board members, of which they are acutely mindful. Governor Healy is a strong climate advocate, but to push back on this project, she needs the Commonwealth behind her. So to get behind her, we can respond to the draft environmental impact report. This is mandated by the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act, or MEPA. Sue will explain what we need to do today.
Thank you, Molly. My name is Sue Swanson. I am also a member of the Bedford Mothers Out Front. The Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act requires a process of information gathering and disclosure for every project meeting established criteria. It mandates that developers submit information about possible environmental impacts, and it allows the state to require further explanation and mitigation. By itself, MEPA does not have the authority to approve or deny proposals. However, the process does alert the public and invites comments on any claims made by the developers. The developers of the Hanscom Field proposal filed their first in a series of reports last winter. It elicited over 350 public comments in just 3 weeks. These comments were a wake-up call that showed the breadth of opposition and the scope of public concern. Their second report, the Draft Environmental Impact Report, or DEIR, was released last month. This is the report we will submit comments on today. Governor Healy will be watching closely to gauge public opinion. So we need to generate as many thoughtful comments as possible. So more than one is fine. We have until May 10th to get them all submitted. These comments will call attention to false or misleading claims in the report and bolster our request that Governor Healy use her authority to get Massport to cancel the project. We don't need to be experts. We just need to write. A toolkit will provide instructions and the details we need to do this. Just what are these false claims? The Coalition to Stop Private Jet Expansion has done a lot of the work for us, identifying claims that are misleading, unsubstantiated, or false. The coalition has also, fortunately, included counterclaims. Mothers Out Front has taken 3 of these as topics for our comments today. And here they are. First, the DEIR claims that this is a net zero project, but that it only includes the buildings, not the super emitting private jets that they plan to house. Second, it claims that this is a sustainable aviation project, but so-called sustainable aviation fuels also emit greenhouse gases, just not from fossil fuels. And the term suggests an aura of sustainability, but even the developers admit this is a slim possibility and a long way off. Third, the report claims this project will not generate any new greenhouse gas emissions. But the plans include storage facilities for 4 new 20,000 gallon underground fuel tanks. For more information about these claims and the project itself, you are invited to check the coalition's website, a link to which is included in the toolkit we will use today. Our first action today will be to write a public comment. Mothers Out Front has abridged the coalition's guide, creating a toolkit that will make our work quite easy and straightforward. Deb will put the link in the chat. If you have time, you are invited to sign and share a petition to the governor as well. All this and everything else you will need to take action today is included in that toolkit, which is now in the chat. We will have about 15 minutes to take the action. Please start by selecting one of the false claims that interests or concerns you. Use the suggested responses and personalize your message if you can. Address the message using the email as directed in the sample to the MEPA analyst assigned to the project. Accuracy and consistency will increase the impact of our comments. If you finish early, please go on to action 2. The second action invites you to sign a petition to the governor, the link which is in your toolkit. This is the same petition we shared last August, but if you haven't signed it yet, please do that today. Our signatures show the governor the breadth of public opposition to the expansion, and will enable the coalition to send you important updates. Then forward the link to others, friends and family across the state who share your concerns. Now let's get started. Deb, would you please put the link to the toolkit into the chat again? For the next few minutes, we will quietly take these actions together. You may want to turn down your speaker volume until 12:40. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat. But if you are struggling with a technical issue, just unmute yourself and ask for help. All the instructions will be emailed to you later today to complete or to share. But if possible, please try to complete the action now while we are together. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly and Sue. Great explanations, and we'll all start working on the toolkit. We'll meet back here about 12:40. These calls make me hopeful about our future because it's going to take a lot of people making comments to really tip the scales in favor of real climate solutions. Each month, we build our movement a little bigger and a little stronger. We raise our voices a little louder and engage others in our actions. And a few more decision makers start listening, and we can start building a significant momentum for change. And that's really the power of working together. Later today or tomorrow, you will receive a follow-up email. It will have the link to the toolkit that we shared today, a copy of these slides, and a recording of this call. We encourage you to forward that email to your network of friends across the Commonwealth. Share with them what you learned today and ask them to join us in taking action on this important comment period. The follow-up email will also include a link to the website of the Stop Private Jet Expansion Coalition, where you can find detailed information about the proposed project and about local standouts and other events. Deb will put that link into the chat now also. Mothers Out Front holds a welcome call every month. If you've asked yourself, what more could I be doing to stop climate change? Then this is the right event for you. We will help you identify the perfect role in our movement for you. We want to help you find ways to use your unique talents, your skills, and experiences to build a stronger and more effective and also more inclusive movement for change. We have one call coming up this Friday, April 5th at noontime. Join us and bring a friend. Deb will put that link into the chat, and it will also be in the follow-up email. And our last announcement, we want this climate action call to be on your calendar every month. The next one will be at noon on Tuesday, May 7th. We'll be hearing about updates on our climate legislation in the State House as we're nearing the end of this legislative term. You won't want to miss this. Deb will put the date into the chat and you will be receiving emails later on to RSVP. So many thanks to all of you for joining together today to take action. Special thanks to our speakers and our awesome tech support team working behind the Zoom screen here. Watch your email for follow-up info to share with others and really spread our action across the entire Commonwealth. We hope that we will see you again next month, May 7th at noon.